Welcome back to exploring the fascinating world of economics and its connection with environment. In the previous two videos, we had examined the concepts of externality and that of production externality. In this video, we shall delve into yet another important topic in environmental economics, namely consumption externality, and we shall also examine consumption externality with the help of examples and diagram. The choices we make in our daily lives about consumption can either cause environmental degradation or contribute to environmental sustainability. From the soaps and detergents we use to the transport preferences we make or the decision about installing rooftop solar panels on our house or consuming dangerous substances like cigarette, all of them affect the environment. In the field of environmental economics, researchers and experts study these outcomes under an interesting topic called consumption externality. In the realm of microeconomics, consumption is how we allocate our scarce income to satisfy our wants for goods and services. These wants are shaped by society and they encompass our essential needs like food, clothing, shelter, and others. Within this framework, demand occupies a center stage. Demand is defined as a desire backed by the ability to pay and the willingness to pay. Consumers allocate money and spend on buying goods because these goods possess utility or they possess want satisfying power. The field of environmental economics builds upon the principles of economics and takes into consideration that no consumption is possible without an element of environment in it. Therefore, every decision that a consumer takes affects the environment. Let's look at the consumption externality. There are two categories of people in this particular consumption externality to be considered. The first is the consumer who takes a decision to consume certain commodities. The second is the bystander who has had no influence on the decision taken by the consumer. This consumption behavior of the consumer enters into the utility functions of individuals or groups, affect their welfare, and creates external benefits or a harm to other parties. Both these outcomes are not transmitted through the market mechanism and hence are a form of market failure. It is also important to know that these costs and benefits occur without malice or benevolence, and these are unintended. The benefits or costs are unintended. Positive consumption externality is the benefit that accrue to the third party without them involved in that decision making. Positive consumption externality is better explained with the help of examples. On the slide, the first example is that of consumers making a choice of using public transport instead of driving private vehicles. Using public transport not only reduces traffic congestion, reduces road accidents, saves the use of precious fuel, reduces noise and air pollution, and also promotes more efficient land use and sustainable urban development, thus causing positive consumption externality for the environment and the society. The second example is that of using cloth shopping bags. By choosing to use cloth shopping bags instead of disposable plastic bag, individuals contribute to positive externality by reducing plastic litter, protecting marine life, and conserving valuable resources, all while promoting a more sustainable and eco-friendly shopping culture. The third example is that of installing and using energy efficient home appliances and systems. When households decide to install energy efficient bulbs or high efficiency air conditioners, then they are creating positive consumption externality, because this reduces the energy consumption, lowers greenhouse gas emissions, and promote energy conservation. Households decide to invest in rooftop solar panels, the clean energy that is generated not only benefits them but also contributes to cleaner environment and reduces overall carbon footprint. Let us now look at the phenomenon of underconsumption. In the examples we discussed in the last slide, we find that the marginal social benefit outweighs the marginal private benefit. In other words, the society benefits more than what an individual benefits. Due to this, a large number of people are not willing to consume such desirable goods in the economy. They may not consume in adequate quantities, and therefore we come across a phenomenon of underconsumption of desirable goods. Let us now explain this with the help of a diagram. On the vertical axis, we have cost, benefit, and price, and on the horizontal axis, we have quantity. Find that the blue line is the upward sloping supply curve, which the marginal private cost is equal to marginal social cost is equal to supply. The reason we have had only one supply curve is that we are assuming that there is no production externality. The downward sloping curves, one indicate marginal private benefit and the other indicate marginal social benefit. Now the demand curves, the downward sloping demand curve should be drawn in such a way that the marginal private benefit curve is placed below the marginal social benefit curve. Under free market mechanism, OQ quantity of goods will be consumed at OP price, because the marginal private benefit is intersecting the marginal private cost at point C. Now the question is whether point C or the quantity Q is the socially optimum quantity. Now this is not considered to be optimum quantity because the marginal social benefit curve is above the marginal private benefit curve, and the difference between the marginal private benefit curve and marginal social benefit curve is by the vertical distance shown by the blue arrow or by the vertical distance BC. So then it would mean that the quantity that is ideally to be consumed by the society is quantity Q1, because that is the point A where the marginal private cost and marginal social benefit interact. Therefore, the quantity that is decided is OQ1 and the price is OP1. The vertical distance BC is for the quantity Q. So when Q quantity is consumed, there is an externality of the amount BC. However, we can see that when the quantity Q1 is to be consumed, remember it is to be consumed, should be consumed. Though Q1 is a quantity that should be consumed, it is not consuming Q1, it is only consuming, the society is only consuming Q. So there is a deficit in the consumption of Q1. If we draw that in terms of externality, we will find that the red triangle BCA is actually not consumed by the society. It's a dead weight loss to the society, because had that amount been consumed, the society's welfare would have increased. Now, the market ignores positive externalities because the market does not compensate the consumer who generated the positive externality. Other consumers are unlikely to spend their income on purchasing these kind of goods which generate positive externality. Now, this underconsumption is a problem for society, and consumers will not consume goods that are desirable. Misallocation of resources and also damage to the society. Markets have failed because the good commodity has not been actually consumed. Now the question is, how can more goods be consumed? More goods can be consumed only with a government intervention. Government may intervene in the form of granting subsidies for the consumption of those goods, like how government gives public transport, which could be at a subsidized rate, or it could be subsidizing the cost of installing solar panels, or even when the fuel efficient lights were introduced, the government had subsidized the uh, sale of those kind of goods in the market. Now let's look at the concept of negative externalities of consumption. Negative externalities inflict harm on other and deprive individuals of their welfare, and these individuals are not a party to the consumption activity by the consumer. The fundamental issue lies in the absence of compensation for the third party who is enduring the adverse effect of somebody else's consumption decision. At the same time, the consumer who has caused harm to others' welfare has not been penalized for causing that harm to the others. Take this example of an individual household which carelessly throws their garbage on the street corner, or a tourist leaving litter behind in natural spaces. In both the cases, the waste that is generated on the street corner or in public places creates a range of negative consequences. It pollutes the environment, poses health risk, and diminishes the aesthetic appeal of the place and reduces the overall quality of life for all individuals. Vehicular emissions cause air pollution. Loudspeakers cause noise pollution, or the bursting of firecrackers during festivities also cause noise pollution. In all these cases, they cause distress to both humans and animal life. The third example is that of widespread use of single use plastic, such as plastic bags, disposable water bottles, and an abundance of plastic cutlery that is used for serving and carrying food. Improper disposal or littering of plastic can lead to soil contamination, damage to wildlife habitats, pollution of ecosystems, and contribute to overall environmental degradation. We have heard stories of animals ingesting plastic and leading to severe consequences and even loss of life. Overfishing of oceans, leading to negative externalities by depleting fish population and disrupting marine ecosystems and threatening the livelihoods of the fishing community who depend upon the sustainable fish stock for their income and food security. Moreover, it results in ecological imbalances, reduced biodiversity, and long term damage to the overall health of the environment. This is an interesting picture of how cigarette smoking is harmful to the environment. 6 trillion cigarettes with plastic butts are consumed each year, of which 4 billion are disposed of improperly. Assuming the average cigarette butt has a length and width of 20 mm by 7.8 mm, a decade of cigarette butt could litter cover roughly around 6.24 square kilometer or 624,000 hectares. It also gives an example of comparing that it could have filled up 11,000 Burj Khalifa in a decade. And the subject continues. The number of items collected on beaches in one day. Plastic cigarette butts about nearing 6 million, food wrappers around 4 million, straws and stirrers around 4 million, plastic cutlery around 2 million, and plastic bottles around 2 million. In all these cases, we can see that the private benefit that consumers experience from consuming these kind of goods or services fails to account for the true cost that they are imposing on the society. This is driven by self interest. This disparity between the private benefit and social cost leads to overconsumption of such goods. And this overconsumption is carried on because the true cost of the environmental degradation is not captured by the market. Again, market fails. Let us now look at the negative externality of consumption. In the diagram, we have one supply curve because we are assuming that there is no production externality. Now, in this negative externality diagram, we need to place the marginal private benefit curve above the marginal social benefit curve. Only then we will be able to show the externality caused by overconsumption. So in the diagram, you can see that under free market conditions, the quantity that will be consumed is OQ, where marginal private benefit is equal to marginal private cost at point A. So the price is P and the quantity consumed is Q. Also observe that there is a vertical distance AC, which is the gap between the marginal social benefit and the marginal private benefit. So this distance AC is the negative externality that is being caused. The socially optimum quantity that should be consumed, not is consumed, that should be consumed is OQ1 and the price will fall to OP1. Market has not been able to correct the consumption of negative goods and therefore it generates negative externality. For the quantity OQ, the negative externality is to the extent AC. To the reduced good, that is OQ1, the negative externality could have been reduced. The negative externality could have been reduced by the amount ABC. You can see the triangle pointing towards the vertical axis. So you can say that ABC is the amount that could have been produced and the society would have benefited had the consumption been reduced. So there is a overconsumption of the quantity Q1Q, which is a social welfare loss or what we call as dead weight loss to the environment. That means the environment has been degraded by the area ABC, which is never going to be recovered again. So this kind of loss to the environment happens because of consumption externality, where consumers consume goods in large quantities because they don't bear the cost of that negative externality to others. So the question is, how will this deadweight loss be corrected, or how can market be corrected? The market can be corrected only by the government when the government would tax these kind of goods like cigarettes or examples of this kind, where the government will put a tax so that the consumers will consume less of it. Thank you very much for watching this video till the end. Kindly do subscribe to the video in case you have not subscribed.